Get crazy with the cheese whiz. Ah, here comes another episode of Barrel Full of Daryl. As you know by now, I'm Daryl, and I talk about music, movies, and blah, blah, blah. Now, a few of you have told me that you miss the sponsorship of the Bubbas and the other Scratch Ankle residents. I think the sponsorship was tossed around to so many spokespersons down there, it eventually hit a wall. I waited as long as I could to get a new recorded sponsor message from them, but I eventually had to give it up and find a new sponsor, as I have this time. So I vow to you that if and when I get a new recorded sponsor message from anyone in Scratch Ankle, I will mix it back in. So here we go. Today's music. I will discuss with you the band. No, I didn't stutter or have a tic. The name of the band is actually The Band. They were a Canadian-American rock band formed in Toronto in 1957, and they were active until 1977. Yes, I am old enough to bring to you these little gems that you may not be aware of. Now, there were 5 members of the band, 4 Canadians and 1 American. The Canadians were Robbie Robertson, guitarist and primary songwriter, Rick Danko, lead singer and multi-instrumentalist, Richard Manuel, lead singer and multi-instrumentalist, Garth Hudson, multi-instrumentalist. Now, the lone American was Levon Helms from Arkansas, and he was also a lead singer and multi-instrumentalist. This is how it happened. Levon Helms was playing in a band that was led by Ronnie Hawkins. The band was called the Hawks. They were playing around in Arkansas for a while, and for some reason they decided to go to Canada. So they ended up in Toronto, and Levon Helms was, certainly the drummer in this band. And Robbie Robertson came to some of their shows. Now, Robbie at this time was 15 years old. But he was really impressed and wanted to join the band, and eventually he did. And they also recruited the other members of the band into the Hawks, and eventually they went out on their own. So that's how it came to be. Well, sadly, they are all passed away now. Now, these guys were not a traditional rock band. Their music combined elements of Americana, folk, R&B, blues, and country. To give you a better idea, other than the standard guitars and drums, these are some of the instruments that they played: fiddle, piano, organ, accordion, saxophone, trombone, mandolin, clavinet, melodica, and harmonica. So just imagine all that together. It's great music. But this was not the norm at the time, and they entered onto the scene with a new and original sound that caught everyone's attention. They also featured 3 different lead singers, which was unusual for that time and even now. Now, going back a little bit, from 1958 to 1963, they were known as the Hawks and were a backing band for rockabilly singer Ronnie Hawkins. After this, they spent a few years as the backing band for the famous Bob Dylan, and they were simply known as the Band during this time. I'll tell you that when Dylan started touring with him, all the audiences were used to just seeing Dylan doing his own acoustic stuff. And they were not very receptive of this new backing band, and often just tried to boo them off stage. Didn't really work, but there were a lot of boos. BOOS as well as BOOZE. Now, in 1968, the band, they went out on their own, and they released their debut album titled Music from Big Pink. The Big Pink thing is they wrote and recorded in a big pink house in Woodstock, New York, in the basement. In 1969, they released their eponymous album, titled The Band, of course. Now, both of these albums were received with much critical acclaim. Roger Waters, remember him, the guy from Pink Floyd? He called it the second most influential record in the history of rock and roll. Another critic called the music country soul, a sound that has never been heard before. In other words, both these albums were major hits and brought the band much success. Now, they released numerous other albums from 1970 to 77. During this time, most of the bands were addicted to heroin, and Robbie Robertson carried the load of the songwriting and arranging. So there was really no more collaboration as there had been. Well, Robbie, he grew tired of it, and he was ready to call it quits. So in November of 1976, they announced and performed their last concert. This was a big concert. It was documented in a film called The Last Waltz, directed by Martin Scorsese. It's also on a record album. The concert occurred at a small venue in San Francisco on Thanksgiving Day, and the audience of 5,000 got free turkey dinners. Now, luckily for you and me, they had many guest appearances during this concert, including the following: Joni Mitchell, Emmylou Harris, Neil Young, Bob Dylan, Muddy Waters, Dr. John, Van Morrison, Ringo Starr, and Eric Clapton. What a night that was. The concert film is outstanding. It's funny to note that in post-production, Neil Young's manager insisted that a large blob of cocaine on Neil's nose be removed from the film using special effects, and Scorsese, at first he didn't want to, but he eventually complied. Now, upon watching it again, it looks to me like Neil Young is fully baked in this concert. Anywho, the film was a huge success and is listed as one of the greatest concert films. Now, it's also currently streaming on Prime Video, if you care to watch it, and I suggest you do. Now, these are some of their most popular songs, in case any of them strike a chord with you, pun intended. The Wait, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, Up on Crippled Creek, and Stage Fright. Now, a greatest hits album was released, and it contains these songs as well as other great ones. There's really not a bad song on it. I've added some of these to the playlist so you can listen and enjoy. One more note. So the band broke up not long after the release of the film, but in 1983 they reformed and started touring without Robbie Robertson, who had landed a job as a Hollywood music producer. Now, as a quartet, they also released about 4 albums, but none of them found the acclaim of the previous ones. Now, this lasted for about 6 years, during which time Richard Manuel killed himself by hanging himself in his motel room in Winter Park, Florida, while on tour. One more note. I urge you, I insist that you go to Prime Video and watch the documentary called Once We're Brothers, also produced by Martin Scorsese. And it tells the story of the band from the time they were teenagers, 15, 16 years old, up through the breakup. And it ends with scenes from The Last Waltz. This film will show you the impact they had on music at the time, as well as their influence in the struggles they went through. And now a word from our sponsor.
Hello, hello. I hope all is well with you. Wait, what did you say? You have a limp biscuit, your willy is nilly, you can't run the flag up the pole, you've just taken up residence in Flaccidville? Well, if your pecker needs a picker-upper, then I am the man for you. Well, no, not like that. My name is Woody Johnson, and I am a salesman for a product that will help you to salute the flag. It's called the Turgid Stallion, and it's guaranteed to work in minutes. So keep your lover nearby and watch her eyes light up when she sees you pitch intent. Oh, it may also add a little girth as well. So make a special trip to your nearest pharmacy, and you'll soon be whistling Dixie. But if your member isn't limber within 8 hours, please call your doctor or head over to the nearest clinic. Well, bye for now, and happy logging.
And we're back. So I got a request from a friend of mine, Dustin, to discuss the movie Easy Rider. Wow. What a request. This movie was released in 1969, and it is a landmark counterculture film which explores the rise of the hippie movement, drug use, and the communal lifestyle. It was co-written by and stars Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper, with the latter making his directorial debut. Now, it also stars Jack Nicholson, who was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, which really accelerated his film career. It was produced independently and released by Columbia Pictures. The film's budget was $400,000, and it earned $60 million worldwide. Yeah, that's a buttload of money back in that day. It received mostly praise from critics for the acting, directing, writing, and soundtrack. Now, this movie was released in the same time frame as the movies Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate, all of which sparked the new Hollywood era in which major studios realized that low-budget indie films could make them a lot of money. Now, the soundtrack was also groundbreaking in that it featured popular rock artists of the day, with bands such as The Byrds, Steppenwolf, Jimi Hendrix, and, of course, the band. This added an additional cost of $1 million to the film that was spent on licensing the music tracks. And the movie starts off to the music of Steppenwolf with the songs The Pusher and Born to Be Wild. So you may be wondering, what's this movie about? I'll tell you. Fonda and Hopper play two hippies, Wyatt and Billy, who have just made a large sum of money in a cocaine deal, and they decide to take a motorcycle trip from LA to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. Now, these are not regular motorcycles, they are choppers. The one ridden by Wyatt, Fonda, had the extended forks, ape hanger handlebars, and a sissy bar at the back. Also, the gas tank is painted with the stars and bars of the American flag, as was his helmet. Now, Billy, played by Hopper, refers to Wyatt as Captain America throughout the film. And Wyatt's chopper really became iconic. I vaguely remember having a poster of it in my bedroom wall. So they hide their money in the gas tank of Wyatt's chopper and head off on their trip. They encounter and pick up a hippie hitchhiker who guides them to his commune occupied by about 20 adults and their kids. They have lunch, and then they are enticed by two women to go skinny dipping in the nearby river. The commune, as well as the hippie community, promotes the free love ideal. Now, as they are leaving, the hitchhiker gives Wyatt LSD to be shared with the right people at the right time. I was using air quotes there. Their next stop is a small town in New Mexico that's having a street parade with a marching band. Wyatt and Billy playfully ride their choppers behind the band, and they get arrested for parading without a license. Probably most likely just for being hippies. So in jail, they meet George, played by Jack Nicholson, who is a lawyer and an alcoholic, and he is sleeping off a drunken stupor. Upon their release, George learns of their trip to New Orleans and comments that he wishes he could ride along. So Wyatt asks him if he has a helmet, and then the next scene, George is on the back of Wyatt's chopper wearing an old college football helmet without a mask. Before I go further, let me address their attire and appearance. Wyatt wears black leathers with an American flag on the back of his jacket. His hair is long, as are his sideburns, and he wears sunglasses constantly. Now, Billy is dressed in a more Western-looking jacket and constantly wears a Western hat and, of course, sunglasses. His hair is shoulders length, and he sports a handlebar mustache. George basically wears what remains of his suit and a t-shirt. They eventually stop at a small diner in a small town in Louisiana. They go in, and in this diner there sits about 6 local men, including a sheriff, and in the next booth is 6 teenage girls. The girls are attracted to the riders and openly discuss getting rides with them. But the town men are certainly not attracted to them, and they start to loudly taunt them and start making denigrating comments. Because of this, and due to not being served, they decide to leave the diner, and outside they have to fend off the girls to get to their choppers, all the while being watched by the sheriff through the window. So they leave and they make camp further down the road, and while they're asleep, they get attacked with clubs by the men from the diner. Billy awakens and scares them off when he pulls out his knife, but George is killed. They vow to return George's personal items to his family, but there's really not much left. So they finally make it to New Orleans and pay for a night in a house of ill repute. And with 2 ladies of the night in tow, they go downtown enjoying the Mardi Gras celebrations. They stay out all night, and in the morning, the 4 of them wander into an old graveyard. Now, this is the point where Wyatt pulls out the LSD and they all take a little trip. Now, this scene is visually striking and a bit nightmarish. I was ready for it to end. So they leave Louisiana and ride into Florida. As they're riding along, 2 rednecks in a pickup truck pull up alongside Billy. The passenger points a shotgun at Billy and yells, "You need a haircut." Billy flips him off, and then the redneck shoots him with a shotgun. Now, Wyatt was further ahead down the road, and he turns around after hearing the shotgun, only to find Billy near death. He jumps back on his chopper and rides to catch up with the truck. But in the meantime, the truck is turned around, and Wyatt gets shot and killed as well. That's the end of the film. Not a very happy one. I'll add that Dennis Hopper, may he rest in peace, was one of my favorite actors. He was well known for playing odd, often maniacal roles. His acting in the film Blue Velvet was insane and honestly scary. He also played a hyped-up reporter in the Vietnam movie Apocalypse Now. And he won an Oscar nod for his role as an alcoholic father of a high school basketball player in the movie Hoosiers. That's another great movie, although it's a bit of a tearjerker. On one occasion, I walked past Dennis Hopper in an airport, and he was kind of incognito, so I walked on and I didn't pester him. Perhaps I should have. Okay, that's it for the movie. Word of the day: facetious. Facetious. It sounds like an evil trait, right? But a person that is facetious treats serious issues with deliberately inappropriate humor. Yeah, this kind of sounds like me, I know. Joke of the day: what is the last thing that goes through a bug's mind when he hits a windshield? His asshole. Question of the day. First, we'll discuss the answer to the question from last time. Where will you find the smallest bone in the human body, and what is its name? Well, it's found in the ear, and the name is stapes, which is Latin for stirrup. Without it, we wouldn't be able to hear. New question of the day. In mechanical engineering, what is a 4-bar mechanism? And that's a tough one. I would have to go back and look it up again, as I'm sure my engineering friends would. So I'll give you an alternative question of the day. What is the meaning of sublimation? Sublimation. I'll give you a hint, there's more than one definition. I'm going to add a thought for the day. Shouldn't a butterfly be called a flutterby? I think so. Don't forget about the playlist on Spotify and Apple Music. As you know, I feature songs by all the artists that I have discussed. And you may contact me by clicking on the send me a text button in the episodes or directly at bfodpodcast@gmail.com. One more thing. Remember at the start of this episode, I said get crazy with the cheese whiz? Can you tell me without cheating the name of the artist and song for that lyric? It's more of an interjection than a lyric, actually. Well, if you know the answer, send it to me by email or by the text button in the episode. Give me your address and I will send to you a free Barrel Full of Darrell podcast sticker. If you're like me, do it now before you forget. Oh, hell, anybody that wants a free sticker, just send me your address. I'll even send two, one for you and one for your plus one, or just stick anywhere. I promise I will not show up at your door. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.